praise Him. Oh, praise Him. Oh, praise Him.
The great enemy of writing isn't your own lack of talent, it's being interrupted by a
Let me give you some advice. The process of doing your second draft is a process.
La 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 la. $30 rebuy with the $30 add-on. 8,026 prize pool. This is a $100 buy-in right here. $10,000 prize pool. This is a $7 rebuy add-on. So I'm in for 21 on this one. 90 on this one. This one I want a satellite seat, so I'm in for 30. It's a $100 buy-in. And this is a $50 seat, or $50 freeze up with a 5K guarantee. 240, 267, 61, plus a $2 rebuy add-on to a $30 seat.
Searching for family vacations? Find it with Vrbo. They search millions of amazing vacation homes to find you the perfect pool, where everyone has their own chair.
Got him. Full double. Let's go. lost that flip. Sevens versus ace queen. I flopped a gut shot. Bricked out. Meaning I didn't hit the turn or river to give me a better hand than the sevens. It was a $50 tournament. I would have had 16 plus thousand, which is plenty of room to maneuver. So it's frustrating. I probably could have called and, maybe check raise, jam, flop. Anyways, I'm out and I'm going on a 5-minute break. So I'll turn the music back on when I get back. Oh, what are you doing? I was looking for you. Come here. Look. You got it, yes. Excellent. Yes, good job. You got it. You got it. Good job. Excellent work. Alright, time to go. Look, I got pocket threes, pocket fours, and pocket fives. The first hand back from break on all my tables. That's funny. So pocket fours, all in. I have around 16 big blinds, meaning this is the 800 big blind. His stack is about whatever, 15 big blinds deep. Diamond. Diamond. Ah, it's so annoying. Ah, it's so annoying. He's gonna call it ace high here. Oh no, he's not. He was trapping me. I thought I was overvaluing aces, and turns out I wasn't. What are you doing, dude? Take it easy, huh? Yeah, you. Take it easy.
There's this idea that in portraiture, it's the photographer's job to set the subject at ease. I don't believe that.
chips in the bowl. Woohoo! Pocket Cowboys.
5, 5, 7 lots. This is still best. Stab away. 1/3 pot, so I gotta go on fog.
Oh, man.
Let's see. No surprises here.
Five, 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 five. I've got 5 on me. Coming from the industry.
You need to understand that everything you do at the poker table conveys information. You can't be like all loosey-goosey having a sandwich, being on your phone.
I've heard that so many times. That specific advertisement.
In this video, we'll be reviewing a hand from the 25k Euro Party Poker Millions event in Rozvadov. This hand is between Igor Kurganov and Tom Vogelsang. We joined the action with 17 players remaining and only 6 to be paid.
Takes his chips, takes his champagne.
I like that the camera got that too. It was very sneaky. He just wandered back there, got some champagne.
No, we
Camera
caught
was
you.
right on it.
He didn't say anything.
Tom, with roughly 47 big blinds, opens the action in the hijack with king-queen. This is a standard play in any scenario, but for the benefit of viewers that play both cash and tournaments, it's worth noting the differences in opening ranges between the ante and no ante game. Comparing the two, we see that the opening range is significantly wider in the ante game. In particular, we see that these lower pocket pairs, suited connectors, and suited combos with one Broadway card are opening with much greater frequency, which underscores how the ante should incentivize us and our opponents to open wider relative to a cash game.
He didn't say anything. And it made his way over.
Okay, so the actions are either all of it or none of it. But I might just try again. Yep. I might just try to beat you. Yep. That's what it flipped.
Going try, says with the fives.
Oh yeah? Okay, so should we agree to just check it out?
Up against the king-queen.
The action folds around to Igor with around 42 big blinds in the small blind, looking down at pocket fives, and decides to call. Again, if we compare the small blind's defending range with and without an ante, we see that in the ante game, the solver is calling much wider, defending all pocket pairs, a number of suited connectors, suited combos with one Broadway card, as well as additional offsuit Broadway combos. It is also interesting to see that in the ante game, the solver will begin to shove here with 40 big blinds with a few strong aces, suited Broadways, and middling pocket pairs, presumably in an effort to steal the larger amount of dead money in the pot relative to the no ante game.
Comes 10-10 deuce.
Check.
So far so good for the fives.
The flop comes 10-10 deuce, and both players check. As we can see, this paired and dry board significantly favors the pre-flop aggressor, as his pre-flop range advantage is mostly retained, since the caller should not connect significantly with this board. Both players will have tens in their range, but the small blind caller should have little to no overpairs. As a result, Pio is advising the pre-flop raiser to raise every single hand in the range with high frequency, which really highlights how important it is from a GTO perspective to first evaluate ranges before considering how our individual holdings should be played.
Oh, that is your weak point.
Check, check, deuce on the turn. So far so good for the fives.
Great board for fives to be able to get a little bit of value too. Ace high and king high would probably put a few chips in this pot by the river.
120.
Bet 120.
The turn double pairs the board, and we see that Tom's range advantage has either been neutralized or moved in Igor's favor. This is likely because of Tom's check, since he should have been inclined to bet with high frequency on the flop, which was much more favorable to him. As a result of Tom's check, the solver will remove some of Tom's stronger holdings from his range that should have begun betting to build the pot, thus resulting in weakening his overall range. In contrast, we see that if Tom had bet small on the flop, he would have maintained his range advantage on the turn. Given Tom's check, we see that Pio will take the initiative with almost half of Igor's range, including these lower pocket pairs, which are likely ahead of most of Tom's range, but at the same time are vulnerable to overcards and could use protection from an unfavorable runout. We also see that the solver will begin to bet larger, full pot, with some of its stronger holdings, such as these 10x hands, and then balances out its range by incorporating a number of bluffs that take the same line, particularly with combos that block a number of 10s in the hijack range, such as Queen X, Jack X, 9x, and 8x.
Getting 4-1. I'd be tempted to peel here. Having position and just knowing it's going to be hard for Igor to fire again.
He does peel.
We see that Tom has a very borderline decision with the king-queen, as he has very limited draw and showdown equity in this spot. And even if he were to hit a king or queen on the river, he could still be far behind a number of Igor's holdings. However, given Igor's relatively small 1/3 pot bet on the turn after a checked flop, the solver will choose to defend a significant portion of Tom's range, even with marginal hands, to avoid being exploited by over-aggressive opponents who should have a number of bluffs here, including flush draws. As we can see, virtually all made hands of flush draws defend. Additionally, most ace-highs are also calling, and king-queen appears to be right at the cusp of the calling and folding threshold.
Jack of spades on the river. Kurganov's fives, still good.
Bit of a scary card, I would think. I think Tom has some ace jacks, king jacks in his range.
120.
That's 120 again on the river.
A tiny bet targeting the king highs and ace highs.
Yeah.
A little bit of a block bet.
The river brings the jack of spades, and Igor decides to repeat his same bet from the turn, which is now 20% of the pot. This appears to be a block bet, which is a strategy that is often utilized by the solver and can be quite an effective tool for a number of reasons. One, a block bet can extract value from some of the weaker hands in the villain's range in a relatively low-risk manner compared to a value bet by an in-position player, since the out-of-position player does not reopen action with a bet. Additionally, block bets also help fortify the out-of-position player's range. As discussed, when a player checks, particularly on the river, some of the stronger combos in his range should be removed. As a result, a check is often perceived as an indication of weakness, and therefore opting to bet, even a small amount, should, at least in theory, keep a greater portion of the bettor's value range intact and uncapped, thus deterring raises by some of the villain's marginally stronger holdings, as well as his bluffs. Third, a block bet allows a player to be proactive in setting the price to continue. Yes, the in-position villain will always have the opportunity to respond with a raise, but generally the villain should be less inclined to raise after a bet compared to betting after a check, and in the latter case, the villain gets to take the lead on setting the price. So when should we block bet? Well, one of the most ideal situations to utilize a block bet will be when two conditions are present. One, we have a range advantage, since this will allow us to bet a greater portion of our range, and two, in scenarios where we can play our range as a uniform distribution, which some may refer to as range merging. In Igor's case, both of these conditions apply. For one, we see that PO increases betting frequency overall in Igor's shoes, given that both equity and EV has shifted significantly in his favor. This is likely for the reason we previously mentioned, where Tom's passive play on the flop and turn implies that his range is weak. Of course, it's possible that Tom could have some slow play combinations in his range, but most of his stronger holdings, and in particular tens, should have been inclined to bet on the flop or raise on the turn to increase the size of the pot. Additionally, we see that Igor's betting distribution is largely uniform or merged, where portions of the top, middle, and bottom parts of his range are being played in a similar manner, which helps disguise the weakness of Igor's marginal hand. Right? We see that a number of quads, full houses, lower pairs, and airs are all making this bet. And this raises the next question, which is, when should we merge our range? Well, one of the most common spots to range merge is where the board texture is such that it gives both players a perceived polarized range. For example, a board that has 4 to a straight or a flush, or a board that is double paired, such as the case here. In this type of scenario, a player can leverage its perceived polarized range by adding in mid-strength combos into its betting range with the goal of achieving two results. One, cause the opponent to expand his calling range with bluff catchers, which are behind the bettor's medium-strength hands. And two, depending on the bet sizing, cause the opponent to fold stronger but marginal hands. And oftentimes, utilizing a smaller sizing for this purpose makes sense, since it allows us to expand our betting range, and secondly, utilizing a larger bet sizing may force a polarized villain to play correctly and simply fold its weaker holdings and call with its stronger holdings, which the hero may be behind. In contrast, if the villain has a range with a more normalized distribution, largely comprised of middle strength hands, which some may refer to as a condensed, depolarized, or capped range, a bigger bet will often be warranted since a greater portion of the villain's non-nuttish range should call a larger bet. In this scenario, we see that Tom's range consists of a number of stronger hands in green, a number of weaker hands in red and orange, and relatively few medium-strength hands represented in yellow. This somewhat polarized range is likely largely a function of the double-paired board, where most of Tom's range will consist of strong or weak hands with few in between. In this spot, a larger bet by Igor will be called primarily by Tom's stronger holdings that Igor may be behind. However, a small bet by Igor should be called by a much greater percentage of the weaker holdings in villain's range, including lower pocket pairs and a number of ace highs. In contrast, if the board had run out differently, say a 9 on the turn and a queen on the river, we see that the solver utilizes a much more polarized strategy where the top of the range as well as some bluffs are betting full pot, and these marginal lower pairs are now checking 100% of the time. This is expected since when we view Tom's range from an equity perspective, we see that there are now a significantly greater percentage of mid-tier yellowish hands in his range on this board, some of which will be able to call a larger bet.
But induces this raise to 600.
Sniffed out the blocker bet. Makes it.
So Tom decides to raise here 5x with his king high, which highlights one of the risks to the small block bet, as it will often induce a raise. In fact, we see the solver responds to this small bet by raising approximately 40% of its range. We see that holdings all the way down to pocket sixes are raising for value here, and the solver will also allocate a number of bluffs across the bottom of its range as well, including with king-queen, as there aren't many clear combos with strong blocking or unblocking properties given this board. In contrast, we see that if Igor had bet bigger, around 50% of pot, the percentage of raising in Tom's shoes drops significantly.
Makes it 600K. Action back on Kurganov with the fives.
And Igor makes the fold.
In Igor's spot, we see that calling with fives is essentially a toss-up, where the solver is bluff catching with mixed frequencies with these weaker pocket pairs, again, likely in part because there are limited marginal combos with differentiated blocker or unblocker properties on this type of board. The EVs between calling and folding are close, so either play should generally be fine, but being deeper in the tournament, Igor's laydown may be more preferable. So to sum it up, in this hand we examined one of the most nuanced, abstract, and difficult concepts to master in the realm of GTO and poker in general, which is determining bet sizing and how that in turn impacts defense strategy. We discussed how a block bet can be an effective tool to extract value, help fortify our range out of position, and also set the price to continue, but at the same time can induce bluffs, which will sometimes make check calling instead possibly a better option in certain scenarios. So that's the video for today. Thanks for watching, and until next time, stay balanced.
That's some good stuff. Oh, 7. Got one. Oh, 7 again. Bought out. Quads. Quads. 4 sevens. This tournament has 2,247 to first. This tournament here has 2,900 to first. This tournament here has a $30 seat to 5 people. There's 12 left. This right here has around, what is it, 816 to first. So let me just ship all 3 of these, and that would be a fat payday. But, you know, just winning one will be, you know, I can make 2 my goal. Win 2 of these. And I get pocket kings. And this guy open right here. Let's go 20-7. $16.85. No, 22.80.
You need to understand that everything you do at the poker table conveys information. You can't be like all loosey-goosey having a sandwich, being on your phone. Woohoo, baby, I love it. There's
Skip that. Woohoo, king me. Should have been in there. Just kidding.
Hey guys, this is Phil Galfon from BlueFirePoker.com. Today I'm going to be reviewing a session I played and ended up not getting any action. So I set at some 6-max tables, and after about 5 minutes of recording, ended up getting some heads-up action. So I skipped those 5 minutes. Nothing really eventful happened. Yeah, there was like a 3-bet with aces, and everybody folded, and then I won a small pot on this table with trips. Anyways, I think this video should turn out to be very interesting to a lot of you. I think this will probably be the most advanced video that I've made, and I think it should hopefully bring up a lot of concepts that a lot of good regulars who are Blue Fire members haven't thought of, or put into action at least. I guess I'll just start the playback. But I decided to approach this session with the idea of playing, really setting out to play a 45-minute match. And what I mean by that is, first of all, I'm going to play fairly exploitably, which is not the way that I usually play. And by that I mean I'm going to have ranges in certain spots that are extremely weak or extremely strong, but not in spots that he should be able to catch on to, at least, in the first 3-4 hours we play together. And since we're not going to be playing that long, that's, more than okay. At the same time, I'm going to be working early in the match and really late in the match just to set a tone and create an image, and try to affect the way he's playing. And obviously I'll be taking notes on him and trying to adjust it the way that his tendencies dictate. So here, before this table got on screen, there was a hand that showed down where he called in the big line with ace-10 offsuit. It's certainly normal to not 3-bet ace-10 offsuit there, but but that's still something that when I just sit down with someone, I take as many notes as I can. So this player wants to two-table me. I don't know much about the 5-10 regulars, but I assume that he's a regular, given that he's multi-tabling 5-10 heads up. Probably pretty solid, pretty good. I do assume that he doesn't know me, because I think if he did, he probably wouldn't want to multi-table me. If he wanted to play me for fun, I would expect like one table. But I just assume he doesn't know me on stars. So here he 3-bets. Obviously not really a tough decision for me. I think both options are fine, either 4-betting or calling. And, I'll adjust probably to start off a match, I'll lean towards 4-betting a little bit, but not by much. Depending on how a player plays, I can shift my standard play here quite a bit. But since I don't know much about him, I think it's kind of close. I end up 4-betting because I think that, like I talked about, I want to be kind of setting a tone and playing in a way that will affect the rest of the match. And I think that early in a session, people are pretty impressionable. And by that I mean that things that I do now will stick with him throughout the session, probably more than they should. I end up getting it in with ace-king, which is just standard, very standard cooler. But what I'm saying is, I think that by 4-betting early on here, it's gonna, if he does fold, it discourages him from making a lot of aggressive plays, not only pre-flop but post-flop in the future. I think that it'll have in the back of his mind that he made an aggressive action. I made a large move back at him. And if he doesn't know my hand, whether or not he can't know whether it was a big hand or not, and so he'll always have that question mark kind of in his head that I might be capable of making some large plays, or very likely to make some large bluffs. So Jack-10 suited, I decided to c-bet. I think that checking back here is fine. Not really a big difference either way, but
when we're looking for tells, essentially what we're looking for is behavior that is different than the norm. It's pretty common for most poker players to fidget in this way, and you can actually glean a lot of information based on how people are shuffling their chips in key situations. Here comes the flop, like this, and the first thing I do is, you notice that? So all of a sudden my eyes take the lesson from the brain and glance down at the chips. Now that's a sign that I like what I see. Sometimes you'll see a player take chips and they'll just splash me. That same player other times may decide to just gently put them in this way.
But the ace-10 offsuit hand that you didn't see, that I noted, he check called like a, I think it was like a queen rag flop, rainbow flop with ace-10 offsuit. So I think he will be check calling with a lot of ace highs. Might be the type to float with some gutters, so I decided to bet for value there. Obviously off the bat we're up a buy-in thanks to the cooler, which I think also, you know, sets a tone, a good tone for a match. Kind of keeps your opponent. It's hard to explain exactly, you know, what adjustments he's going to be making or what mistakes he's going to be making based on that, but I think it'll just keep him not on his A game, not as confident. So here I 3-bet on the left with ace-4 offsuit. This is not a standard 3-bet for me by any means, but he seems to be folding to a lot of 3-bets. He also still has that aces versus ace-king hand in his head, and while that isn't a hand that makes it seem like I have, you know, that I'm going crazy or that I'm going to 5-bet if he 4-bet bluff shoves something, or if he 4-bet bluffs. What it does do is, in my opinion, I think that when premium hands have been shown down in big pots in the, you know, recent past, people's brains are a little bit more likely to believe that those hands come along more frequently than they do. Since we just got aces against ace-king in, it makes, in his mind, I think it makes it seem more likely that I have a premium hand, and so it'll make him less likely to 4-bet bluff or call light. Here I make a 3-bet on the right table to 88. So far I've made a few 3-bets, they were all to 111. I think that, first of all, I want to see how he adjusts to a smaller 3-bet, because I have a feeling he is uncomfortable playing against 3-bets. Mostly people that fold to a lot of 3-bets, which it seems like he's doing, are not experienced in 3-bet pots in position, since they're usually folding or 4-betting. So I don't mind if he starts taking flops against me, some of the time at least, in position, since I think he'll be uncomfortable in those spots. Also, I think that the first time that I adjust my 3-bet size, he's going to be less likely to play back. I think that it makes it seem like there's a chance, if he doesn't know me, which I think he doesn't, it makes it seem like there's a chance that now I finally have a premium hand and like I pick up aces and I try to trap him, something like that. There'll be a little fear in his head, so I don't think he'll be likely to play back the first time I do that. I do think he'll end up playing back in the future if I continue to do that. So I'm opening most buttons here. Just because I think he's folding a lot, and opening every button against somebody who folds a lot and isn't 3-betting too much is probably near optimal. I get check raised on king 9 rainbow, and I have king 7, try to trap him, something like that. There'll be a little fear in his head, so I don't think he'll be likely to play back the first time I do that. I do think he'll end up playing back in the future if I continue to do that. So I'm opening most buttons here. Just because I think he's folding a lot, and opening every button against somebody who folds a lot and isn't 3-betting too much is probably near optimal. I get check raised on king 9 rainbow, and I have king 7, so I'm behind any king, but I'm not getting away from this hand pretty much ever. First of all, I guess I should think about his range. I think that he definitely can have a king in his range. I think he can have a lot of just random air, and then a lot of queen 10, queen jack, jack 10 that decided not to float but to check raise instead. So I think there are a lot of gutters in his range. Against that range and against somebody who might be frustrated, I think the best play is to call here. I was leaning towards 3-betting the flop, just kind of with the same rationale that I had going into the aces hand on the right table, that I wanted to set a tone that he's not going to be able to take pots away from me, so that if I do 3-bet here and he folds whatever he has, think it'll make him a little scared to make moves in the future and might keep him playing a straightforward game. But I felt that this wasn't as close as the aces hand. By that I mean that the aces hand, I think it's pretty close between a 4-bet and a call. I don't think that either plays a big mistake. But I think that against his range, 3-betting here on the flop is a big mistake. I don't think he is ever going to be 4-bet bluffing the flop, almost ever at least. And I think that given that his range, I think, is comprised mostly of gutters and then some air, I think a call plays much better. He's going to be firing a lot of turns and putting himself in ugly spots. So here the 8 turns Jack 10 into an open-ender, although I don't think he's going to bet an open-ender this size. He bets 220 into about 320, I think. I think he would maybe check raise or bet more to commit himself or something. So I'm sticking with my read of his range that I think it's mostly gut shots or total air. And so what I decided to do here is make a small raise that puts a gut shot in an awkward position. Here on the right, I 3-bet to 111 rather than 88 because this is a hand that I want to get stacks in with. That's obviously very exploitable and not something that I do against my normal opposition that kind of know my game and will adjust to that in the future and have a better handle on how I play. But I don't think that he, there's no reason to think that he's going to jump on this sizing tell. And so I think he still is likely to, potentially 4-bet bluff. And also to, I think he might be calling this almost as light as he's calling when I make it 88. So I want to get more money in against his weaker hands. And I'm going to make this smaller raise on the left. It accomplishes a couple things. First of all, it puts him in a very awkward spot with his gut shots, which I think are very likely parts of his range. If he has a hand like Queen 10, I think he actually could end up shoving here, convincing himself that I have a lot of air and that he has four outs. So why not?
Lame.
How things are in that third-rate novel of yours, but where I come from, one does not...
Let me give you some advice. The process of doing your second drug.
How are you?
I'm so good. How are you?
You have a good speaking voice already.
Wow. Thank you.
Waking us up with it. Tell us who you are, where you're from.
My name is Ashley Hess. I am from Fremont, California originally. I actually just moved to Nashville though, so
Good for you.
California's where I'm from, but I live in Nashville now.
What's your favorite color?
Yellow.
Whoa! That's usually the last Skittle in the bag for me.
See, I like yellow. I'll eat your yellow. It's great.
Give me your pink.
We'll switch.
So tell us how you got here.
So my journey to music is not typical. After I graduated high school, I thought I wanted to be a dental hygienist.
You wanted to be one.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was like, that's a good, stable job. You can make your own schedule. You're like working with people, except You're working with people, but your hands are in their mouth, so when you talk to them, they can't respond to you.
Yeah,
They obviously
yeah,
didn't think that one through.
And sometimes they have halitosis.
Okay, let's get back to the show. All right, anyway, yeah, my ADD is at full capacity.
It's great.
What are you going to sing for us today?
I'm gonna sing Don't Know Why by Nora Jones.
Perfect. Very good.
I'm gonna play piano.
Oh, great.
So I'm gonna swing over here.
Didn't win.
I waited till I saw the sun. I don't know why I didn't come. I left you by the house of fun. Don't know why I didn't.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to my second channel. Today I'm here with one of my girlfriends.
One of them.
Today, as you can see by the title, I'm going to be giving you guys a house tour. Contrary soon too. Now, I want to warn you guys, this is bag. This is my big...
This house sucks.
This is where we check to see if we're still narcissists.
Yep.
Yeah, we still are.
Yeah, we still are. This is Views, which stands for my brand new podcast with Jason Nash.
You can find in the link in bio.
Thank you, Liza.
Paid to do that.
These are my balls.
I've always wondered what they look like.
We actually found this outside, and the people that interior decorated my place cleaned it off.
No, this is actually the first subscriber that came and visited David's house. This is what happens if you come to the house.
I know that sounds scary. I think this leads me into my next point. Guys, if you find out where I live, please do not come and visit my house. If you guys want to come say hi to my apartment all you want. I'll be outside. I'll come outside and say hi. Back to the tour. This is my kitchen.
This is where a woman belongs. Freeze frame.
You kind of screwed yourself over on that one.
Did I?
Yeah.
Well, we also clean too.
Oh, that's true.
Woman cleaning freeze frame.
And inside here we have the room for someone who's living with me.
Who's living with you?
Well, it rhymes with Palix Turnst.
Scotty Cyrus living with you?
Alex Ernst's room! This is my living room.
That's nice.
Thanks, Liza. This is my prized possession right here. Clickbait style, baby! And this is a fireplace where we have fire. Just watch my vlogs all day.
Hey, I have an idea.
What?
Why don't you show him this light bulb?
Yeah, I got a light bulb. Right here are my two fancy interior decorators who are my hometown friends. This is Reggie and Natalie. If you want your home interior decorated, these two are the way to go. I'm gonna link them in the description. Don't laugh. Did you guys use my credit card for stuff other than interior decorating? That's a brand new one. This is my view where you can see mountains, you know what I mean. Mountains. My backyard during the day. My backyard during the night.
Dear God.
Come be in my vlog sometimes, okay, dear? This is my house from the outside.
My house on the outside.
Well, I'm gonna go show them the bedroom.
Why'd you say it like that? Oh, because that's what we do, the nasty things?
It's not really a two-person type bed. It's kind of just for one person. Okay, good night, Liza. Good night, David. Liza, I'm turning it on, okay?
I'm gonna sleep.
No, I'm just kidding. Liza's right here. Reggie hand-painted that wall.
David's office.
And these are my security cameras that hook up straight to the police department. So if anybody's stealing anything at any time, I'll be able to tell. Oh my God. Oh my God. Who is that? Someone's stealing my soccer ball. That's today's video. If you like and subscribe, thanks for watching, guys. Make sure you subscribe to Liza. Make sure you go buy my merch because it's going to be linked in the description below. Make sure you go check out my friends' emails. It's also going to be linked in the description. If you need an interior decorator, they're going to kill it. And this is my pool table. Thank you, Liza, for demonstrating what you do on a pool table.
It ain't my fault.
Our first guest at the house.
We're sorry for throwing up on your brand new lawn last night.
Oh, you threw up on my lawn.